you shouldn't need 3 platforms, 2 phone calls, and a frustrated family to finish a discharge plan. What if clinicians, caregivers, and patients can all work in one platform across all care plan stages? In today's episode, we review a Slack-like tool that connects nearly 1,000 facilities to help us reimagine care coordination and predictable workflow. Welcome to Provider's Edge, the podcast that helps healthcare entrepreneurs and innovators break down barriers and control their business, life, and future with valuable action steps. With me, your host, Sabrina Runbeck, a recovered clinician and a business deal catalyst. Let's rewrite the rules and create a positive social impact while increasing your profitability. We're back at the PointClickCare conference with Eugene, who has been a major mover in understanding and actually leveraging data the right way, especially when we talk about interoperability. What do you do with the data? And sometimes it seems like for some of us who are clinicians, we're like, well, it's out there and you sort through things. And definitely technology can help us to sort through those big data and then feel like that we actually have control over the data. We know what to do with the data and not just seems like it's in the cloud somewhere and someone will figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And then your admin people's like, but what does that mean? Can we predict things? Can we make better decisions? So it's such a critical point. It's not just in this long-term care space. It's really the entire infrastructure is interconnecting and not getting things lost in the process. So I would love for you to help us understand a little bit about even your background. How did you get into the field and why creating specific in the space of data analysis versus anything else that you might be interested in healthcare?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. I think just like a lot of technologists, and I've been in technology for a little over 30 years now in different industries, we're also human beings and quote unquote, sometimes patients who end up in the doctor's office. And when you fill in 33 forms and every time it's the same information, or you have to deal with, your own health or your family or, your loved ones, there's a constant, experience with that sort of disconnect of, what you want to achieve versus what you have to deal with on the administrative side. Plus, I have a lot of physician friends who we talk about sort of the burnout and sort of dealing with a lot of administrative weight. So that was kind of the inflection point, both on the sort of personal experience, but also looking at tackling what we believed at the time, I believed at the time and still exists, the fragmentation of information. I don't want to even call it data, but fragmentation of information in the healthcare environment. So, although I should not have been naively 6 years ago, we started this entity thinking that as technologists, we can come in and kind of save the day, only to find out that the reality is a lot more complicated, as a lot of people will tell you from the technology space. So that's kind of the story. The interoperability was kind of the term and terminology that everybody can attach to. Because it's, legally driven. It's something that the government is sort of pursuing through the ONC regulation. So we took that as our entry point into the space, saying, how do we help connect the dots, right? Although the strategy was always, how do we deal with data? Interoperability by itself is a good sort of overarching theme. But even here at PointClickCare's summit, there are workshops that try to explain why interoperability is much bigger than just integration. How does this impact care coordination? How does it help efficiencies? So that's kind of the quick summary introduction.
Yeah. Now, there are people who are in it and very involved in it. And despite how much we know about it, it seems it's still going to be confusing, right? At the end of the day, that's why you guys have been spending years of trying to build this and help out. What are some of the case studies that you can share into the application side of what you guys have built?
Sure. And just a quick comment on that. It's pretty much, our conversation, which we've found out, and we continue sort of exploring. The conversation with clinicians is never about integration.
Right.
It's through the lens and view of end user experience. What do you see? What do you expect to see? What is the outcome? Because nobody's really interested at the clinical side on the nuts and bolts. I say nobody, but pretty much the end user is focused on how do we help their better do their job. So the use cases, kind of our entry point, was integration of two large systems. One on the ambulatory specialty care, mostly Athena Health and PointClickCare. This is kind of where we cut our teeth, so to speak. And it continues being one of our biggest driver today, although we have expanded beyond that. And actually, it also opened up the opportunity to see and expand on the strategy. So the problems, and I'll talk a little bit about the use case in a second, or use cases, but it exposes the overlap of how care providers on one side, be that acute or ambulatory or whatnot, and on the other side, the recipients of that care and customers on long-term care, how do they interact? What are the friction points? And I think, and we do believe that is just going to increase more and more and more, how to make them more efficient, right? So with that said, the use cases today are, how does a practitioner in either acute setting or ambulatory setting interacts with the data set on the side of long-term care, be that PointClickCare or other systems involved in long-term care. So first and foremost, we help to bridge those gaps. And there are a lot of things involved in it. Medication reconciliation, diagnostic information. How does it interpret in one system versus the other? How's the patient represented in one system versus the other? And where we see our value proposition is not just connecting the pipes, which a lot of people think that's where it ends. And it should be theoretically if we were all communicating in the same language. But as it stands today, we don't. And systems use different identification for medications. Sometimes, systems don't necessarily represent things in the same way. So we go through a lot of work of tying in, first of all, how the data is managed in that respect. On the other, how is it represented on each side? Does the user have that experience that they should have? Should it be represented inside the EHR itself, or do you have to have something like a Smart on Fire add-on? Those are kind of the use cases if we are talking about user experience, and we can talk more about the data side. I'll explain a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. For us, it's more transitional care is so important with the interoperability, is that how everyone go into a different system, and then sometimes they don't register the name exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. And when you go from let's say urgent care to a hospital for admission to going back to your community physician doctor, mm-hmm. Are we all getting the same latest list of medication recon? Mm-hmm. Even though as clinicians, we always say, go see your primary care doctor, close the loop in the next 2 to 4 weeks. But how many people actually do that? And even they do show up, do they have the actual paperwork, the discharge summary, that they can just show it to that doctor if they're not on the same system already? And we also know there's so many EHR out there. Not everyone's on Cerner, Epic, or HCA have their own, right? Yeah. So when you're going from different places, some of us travel across the country, international, where are you going to share those data when you have, what I always say is your left hand have no idea what the right hand's doing. Sure. So when you try to high five each other, you keep missing it and there's no sound. And that's the complication of the system in itself. Yeah. And some of the work can be in the smaller community. People start saying, what are the tools and integrations that we can already make these connections and make it so intuitive. There's not so much about even care plan, but it's just the simple way of there's an alert created because this person showed up somewhere else. And then this attached to a same identity that we have on our server, then we can sync that automatically, right? So I think end user, as you mentioned about, it's not so much about what we do as clinicians, it's more of how does a patient getting the right information that they're not confused when they go home, their family not confused. Oh, are you supposed to take your Lasix twice a day or once a day?
Yeah. I think that it's a can of worms that has been always open there and unfortunately will continue to be there. And it's a multidimensional problem. And I don't think we're going to resolve it like tomorrow.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that there are being steps made in the right direction right now from a perspective of interoperability. Although, I mean, I don't want to get on the soapbox and talk about the regulations shortcomings or not. It is a very difficult, complex problem. So, there have been HIEs, and we don't have to go into too much history, since the introduction of the legislation or introduction of EHRs, when ACA was implemented. But fundamentally, it's still a patchwork, right? That is continuously driven to be improved by a whole community. And I think that the vector is in the right direction. There are people that are genuinely interested in dealing with that issue. And there's some silver linings and light at the end of the tunnel. That being said, I think there's an opportunity, and this doesn't apply to all the demographic, especially for the aging population. It may be different, but we can talk about that. As consumers, patients need to start taking and have the opportunity, and there's an opportunity also for digital health providers to take responsibility for their own health. Like, for example, how often do we go into Epic's, My Chart and look at what the diagnostic information there is? And even when we how do we make sense out of it? Is there room for improvement there? And I believe that there is. I'll admit, don't, kill me for saying this. I take the information there, plug it into ChatGPT and say, hey, how's my health over here? I think we need to decrease your sugar levels and cholesterol, which should be expected, right? So, but jokes aside, I think there's an opportunity for a patient-centric applications that when you go to a physician's office, say, this is the first time I'm coming, they are not really connected. I moved to a different state, or I ended up in a different state for whatever reason. I have to see a physician. Here's my clinical information, right? On a phone, it's getting more and more propagated. Now, what's interesting, what's happening right now is the concept being pushed, for the last few years of a kind of a digital door or, a customer data portal, which is more the consumer side. How do you bring it into healthcare? And more to it, how do we apply this for the aging population when there's a care setting, family, physicians, care team? And what we've observed, and I think there's what's happening in the market, the entities, the vendors on the CRM side, like Salesforce, like HubSpot, maybe others, are saying, we actually know how to build those ecosystems that are focused on the kind of the coordination of the needs and wants of an ecosystem versus an EHR that is more about clinical information, about kind of single patient to single physician type of role. So I think that as this grows, there's an opportunity here to coordinate and build these kind of ecosystems. So there's a clear kind of path in that respect. And we're trying to leverage that right now.
Yeah, it's definitely there's our companies coming up from the caregiver perspective to have that specific patient portal, whether it's simply synthesize and be transparent on what that information is, because not everyone have Epic. Epic does have MyChart, but what about all those other platforms, right? And now we still wanted to get to know what's happening with our mom, dad, grandparents when they're in a facility, whether that's short term just for rehab or it's a residential living condition. And then you also have
people coming up with different ideas of, oh, maybe we'll add on something else, right? Getting family involved. If they need to drive them to certain appointment, who's taking care of what, right?
Yeah.
And those are also create that interoperability of, if you don't even know what the appointment is linked to different physician offices, how are you going to take care of your grandpa that's needing ABC?
Exactly. And if the trend continues as it's been sort of developed right now towards home care, it becomes even more relevant. I hate to bring kind of a tragic kind of story, but Gene Hackman and his spouse, right? I mean, give me a break, 10 days, not a sign, so, but those types of solutions of, care in place, notifications, and how to kind of have a digital environment around that are going to be above and beyond just RPM systems that are available today. So potentially convergence of what I just mentioned, the kind of the CRM type of a system with a kind of an RPM type of environment is an interesting spot to look at.
Right, because as a AI marketing background, a lot of my connections. So one subset, we say the best thing that we can get people to get buy-in is social capital. Mm-hmm. How do you build a community awareness that it comes back to you and become your champion and leverage those tools and relationship with the entire healthcare physician nurses? And those tools is not just beyond social media. What they can do is actually capture the data, the email list, the phone numbers within your own ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And then that's why we use CRM, whether it's Salesforce, Go High Level, these HIPAA compliant ones. Then you can create automations, community, depending on their condition of activity. Oh, they book appointment. They did this. You can actually assign points to it. Yeah. So you know the people's engagement level as well as how to cater those messaging. That's the community piece of CRM. And you don't lose people also if they're supposed to be onboarded, but there's a lack of time. We're going on vacation. Call me back 2 weeks. Yeah. How do you remind yourself if you don't have that automated tracking, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, human labor is like too much for any of us.
Yeah, there's clearly going to be a sort of development towards efficiencies to using more tooling and so on and so forth. At the same time, I'm going to riff a little bit on the data side, if I may. So all of this is great, right? So we can be creative, we can be, very sort of proactive and so on and so forth. I still think that, and we believe that the foundation is the core data, how it's managed, right? We're not going to break the silos completely ever, right? They're going to be in place. The question is, how do you manage that compartmentalization, in a way and fashion that gives you the data when necessary, bring it to the place that it's needed or stored without, breaking confidentiality rules, security, and so on and so forth. So I think, although I love the creative side of the business, I think there needs to be a lot of focus. I'm talking to some of the CIOs that are kind of saying, well, you're asking me to be creative, but at the same time, contain costs. Yeah. And actually kind of keep the house in order here on the data side. So those boring kind of things will have to be dealt with by either operators like us or others in the space to kind of navigate in that environment. Then we can start building sort of our creative and innovative parts on top.
Right, because it's a collaborative work, yeah. Right? We can do all this creative messaging, video, getting people get involved. But if you don't have a foundation of, we don't even know if they have 3 different accounts within the same system, then we need to fix that first before we start leveraging these additional tools, because you don't want to just start sending 3 different emails to the same people. They're going to feel so bombarded.
Oh yeah.
So that could be a great user case even for you to share, like currently, right? Yep. We say there's a lot of things we can do, a lot of things we wanted to help and fix. But currently, what would be a one user case, perhaps is with a facility or hospital that you guys are able to build some of these foundational work?
So right now it's in beta mode, I would say. But essentially what we've developed is a solution that it's a workflow and kind of chat integrated mechanism that you can be flexible in a way and fashion that you can create a team, from a multi-dimensional and multi-practice type of an environment. You can have people communicating in a secured fashion, and also, store the documentation, have a kind of a common interface, something similar to people have experience with Slack or Teams or whatnot, but purpose-built for healthcare. And so, again, this is kind of building the plane and flying it at the same time, but we're building it on top of the understanding of their underlying data and talking to the chief information officers, CMIOs, who are looking for similar type of solutions that can bring the organization. There are some similar solutions out there already, kind of, but not in a more complex fashion that we're trying to bring it today. And so whether you're in a hospital running Epic and at the same time you're on PointClickCare, you will have a common space that you can operate in, right? Without having to break your links to the EMRs that you're operating in. Or if you want to plug in like an expert system underneath your ChatGPT environment or a RAG type documentation processing, you will have it there. So again, early days, beta testing, but it's something that we're developing. If we're bringing in today's kind of what we're dealing with today, we have multiple practices who are currently operating in different states, the behavioral health companies, primary care, specialty care, who are tending to long-term care patients in different facilities. I think we're connecting them to close to about 1,000 right now who use PointClickCare. And so all of them, without exception, are using another EHR, but need information from PointClickCare. And so whether we bring the data into the other EHR, build a bridge, or like an iframe, what I was talking about earlier, we almost tailor it purposely, although using the same data for the end user, how they see the medications, how they use progress notes, how do they send them back to PointClickCare. So that's our kind of use case today. That being said, the other growing area that similar type of customers existing in future are saying, how can I leverage the data for better scheduling? Can you give me an aggregation? Some say I would like to have like a data lake of some sort. Either I want to have it and run it, or can you help me operate it specifically for showing efficiency of the programs, or like I said, care coordination, and so on and so forth. So these are the two kind of growing areas. And then we can talk about AI, but I don't want to that can be kind of a separate subject.
Yeah. So it seems like you're already connecting facilities to each other through PointClickCare, and you are the middle person to help with the communication of
Correct.
that, either building this hub of almost like your Chaba Slack, as you were saying, where everyone is connected to the different facility for this patient is on. So you can upload, share documents, have a communications, and having that closed loop, secured communication.
Yes.
And with that beta testing, are you implemented immediately with all facility, or there's a select ones that you're just testing?
No, it's literally just testing right now. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there are certainly let's just say stay in the news. It'll be coming. So.
Yeah, awesome. And what would be helpful for you guys to speed that up? Is that more funding, more trusted partner to give you more data? Like, what does that look like?
It's less about giving us data. It's more about tailoring the use cases to the specific needs. That's something of a conversation that we would like to have. Funding, without a doubt, we're happy to say, or painfully say, we've been bootstrapped, up until now. And so clearly that product will require some funding for sure. Right now, it's having an engagement conversation with both the practice side and the facility side. How can this be tailored for the end users? Where would they see the biggest benefit? So
Yeah, so it's figure out the specific user case to build the product around it.
Yes.
So then we can do a beta testing at set facility who wants this specific user case.
Yeah.
Then expand from there.
Yeah, and I don't want to, make it sound like we have a solution in search of a problem, because we see these problems. It's more of a refinement.
Yeah.
It's sitting down with the end user. We have like 2 or 3 use cases right now that we've implemented at Showed. But expanding that and kind of navigating that would be perfect. One of the, if I may segue, one of the areas that we know that the organizations long-term space are looking at is, agentic AI or AI in general. How do we implement it? How does it help? So eventually they will have to deal with the what's called, ML ops, or, how to implement these types of solutions. And that's an area where the convergence is going to happen. May not be in 6 months, but in a year, as things are going to start rolling out, that's going to come to fruition.
Perfect. Yeah. One of the conversation I've been hearing, even from the conference, talking to some of the system leader, is that sometimes because use laboratory, for example, because there's no synchronization between Epic and PointClickCare the way that they wanted to see it, they have to send the patient's lab to a local facility that uses Epic, but because there's no integration, and they have to separately log in, trying to check that out, versus their own laboratory company doesn't get back to them for 2 to 3 days, right? So then they're using different systems, logging in different places, and then it's like, okay, where's that central point, which is one of the things that you guys are solving.
Yes, and again, I'd like to put kind of the projector over here, but without a doubt, there are players out there that are trying to solve these types of problems, right? The uniqueness I believe we have is that we are kind of operating and hearing the stories on both sides, of the equation. So it's the provider side to long-term care and long-term care consumers, right? So we have that vantage point of understanding, okay, labs here, provider group over here, behavioral health needs this. How does it differ from primary care? Can we overlap the tooling? So I think that's where a lot of the leveraging and economies of scale help us out.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, I like to ask a fun question. So I'm going to give you a magic wand. And then this magic wand grant you 3 wishes. You just cannot ask for more wishes. And then that will help with speeding up this process that you're building. What would you use the 3 wishes for?
Oh boy, you're putting me on the spot here. It's almost a Dalai Lama question. So I think that's what would be, but seriously, it would be great to see a lot more breakthrough legislation that eases the pain in the, let's call it, the healthcare universe. Like, I don't want to hit 2 painful points, but like prior authorization, single payer identification, some of the things that would certainly eliminate a lot of issues that appear today. The other would probably be the understanding by the EHR ecosystem, vendor ecosystem, is that building the relationship, I think PCC is kind of driving part of it today, and some of our other partners, is to see the partner ecosystem and access in a way and fashion that they are truly partners.
Yeah.
And so what are the rules of the game, right? What is the core for the, EHR vendor, and what needs to be done by the partners? How do you build that type of relationship ongoing? So I think that would be a magic wand type of a story. And third, I think what we talked about briefly is how do we make and educate the consumer space, and who will educate the consumer, how to be responsible for your own information, how to make it easier. I'm not the first one to say this. We take care more of our cars, enforced by, to take more responsibility for our cars than our own health. So how to build that, and it's a multi-dimensional education, psychology, and technology type story that if somebody takes on would be great. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's my entire, I think of how I build ecosystem. It's called, we have to build a multi-dimensional, we call it a 5-dimensional empower ecosystem. And to your point is that health, I think people do see that mind, body, soul, but no one connects the dots. And we're all doing something different. Oh, we know the physical health. So I have lab testing. I have this. I have treatment plan. We have surgery. And now we start shifting into this longevity, which is mental health, performance. How do we consider ourselves as someone who actually can do neural remodulation, can get supports, not necessarily just antidepressive or anxiety or whatever medication, where now you have psychedelics, right, to treat PTSD, to make the creative be even more artistic, right? And then you add on to the soul, the spiritual being of who we are. And I think purpose, well, we have one of the groups that I'm in led is we start calling ourselves Zennovation, right? How do you create that type of the right tools of not burning out, but still understand your sense of self and to create what I call the next level of resilience building where you have space. You can be amazing leader, create these changes, but doesn't feel like you are only recognized by the creation that you had, the achievements behind you. And it doesn't feel like we are professionals' tendency of like, oh no, this thing didn't go the way. I don't even know what's happening, right? Because the core of who you are, the value you embody should mean a lot more. And that's how we really align project and performance instead of a lot of shiny object. There could be so many things. Oh, this sounds interesting. Let's have a 2-hour meetings about this. And then the rest of people is like, do we just talk about something else? Like we're adding this on now. What are we doing? Right.
That's a fourth wish. If I would have one, is how to decrease the burnout and the pressure on the physicians right now. If we can take out 15, 20, 30% of their load, that would be a Zen benefit.
Yeah, Zen benefit. Yeah. It's those integrations. So for us, a peak performance leader organization, you have to have that physical understanding of self, how you move, how you draw energy, how do you embody health when we're technically selling health, right? And then it's about as an emotional being, do you understand yourself, allow yourself to feel and able to pivot into the higher level function of what we call the sage brain. That's combination of neuroscience, cognitive behavior, and positive psychology. And then you go into this behavior round of, I'm like you're so training in the technical part. I'm not. And you probably have very good at strategic brain and then understand how the dots are connected versus other people are the big visionary. They can think in this very high round of what that could be, but they can't really plan that out from A to Z. They see A to Z, but they don't know the B to C to D.
Hey, that's why we work as a team.
Correct. And that's the amazing thing. And I think we just simply need to be more self-aware in those situations. And then to say there's the next layer of spiritual alignment of who we are embodying is a match. Instead of most people start hiring both your co-founder, executive, or even physicians, MAs, or the doer level of team, right? Admin level. It just, I have a job description. I need that body there. Let's just hire. And I had an earlier conversation with a HR tech team. Same thing is like, no, when we hire, we have to give them that 90-day projection of what this growth, adoption, onboarding feel like, and how do they see a career projection. There's more to just this one role.
We'll need a separate podcast on that, how to operate in the difference in a startup environment and versus more kind of established, mature. But
correct, because we know like the startup environment, the early growth phase, the people that take you from 8 to 10, not necessarily going to be to 10 to 20. And it's okay to swap them out because it's that mission alignment. They are aligned in the mission of early stage. But once we start needing to really speed up and scale, that takes a different mindset, a skill set, and then perspective.
Or you find places for them in the organization as it grows where they're their sort of knowledge and their character is more applicable. So we call it intrapreneurship, so,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's that ecosystem we're building, and we can be successful. And then the more dialogue we can have, it makes data and not just this, something out there, right? Like, I don't know what to do with this, so someone will pick up. It's that we can actually intentionally be more involved all the way around.
Agreed.
So we appreciate, and then we definitely love to support you as much as we can as this exciting phase of beta testing, seeing the user cases through PointClickCare, through other entities out there. And can't wait to see what's coming up next for you guys. How can people find you to have a deeper conversation?
Go to our site, CYBX.io, CYBX.io. There's contact information there. There's easy info at CYBX.io. Goes to the marketing team, goes to me. We're open almost 24 hours a day, I hate to say it.
That's a startup leader life.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. For everyone who's watching this, how are you able to ensure that all of your patients have that nice journey of knowing where they need? Do they get the right information? Are they not confused about their medication, what they needed to take, or subspecialty? Are they talking to each other? What would be some very helpful user case for you as we're supporting you on this journey? Make sure you subscribe to the channel, comment below wherever you're watching or listening, and reach out to Eugene and his team and share these stories so we can create these solutions for you. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Provider's Edge podcast. We hope you enjoy our latest episode and found the insights and tips helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show and learn what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. So please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and let us know what you think. Your feedback is essential to help us improve the show and provide you with the content you need to take your healthcare business to the next level. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.